Going to talk about the campaign missions. Basically, a campaign mission allows you to win a free tank, such as a Stuke 4 or the Object 260, for example. In this case, I need 14 orders in order to win the Object 260, and I have 12. So I could complete, for example, this mission, which I think is the easiest one for me to complete, and I would win the Object 260. I only need one more game. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the strategy that I used for completing all these missions. Number one, having higher tier tanks makes a huge difference. If you're struggling and you're not at the top tiers, and it's something where the value is high, for example, a lot of damage or a lot of spotting, it's just easier to do it in a tier 10 tank. So those are the types of missions where you just want to postpone them and worry about those later. When it says something like do a lot of kills, or if it says do a lot of kills, you do that in the lower tier tanks. The lower tier, that's the lowest tier that's permitted by the stage level. One thing I want to add, the reason why we have these campaign missions in the game is because of me. I started playing around August of 2014, and they used to have daily missions where you could do like 50,000 experience and you would win something, and it would take maybe 2 hours. You do 50,000 experience or 50,000 damage. I really don't remember what it was. And I wrote to Wargaming. I sent them an email, and I've written so many emails. Trust me, they know who I am. And I said, hey, why don't you do a big mission, something that takes like 3 months to complete with a big prize, instead of 50,000 damage, 500,000 damage, and you win like a free premium tank. And 3 weeks later, they announced the first campaign mission, which was to win an IS-6. You had to do 500,000 damage. I already had the IS-6, so I really couldn't win the mission. And they have put so many of my ideas in the game. That wasn't the only one. There's actually a long list of ideas. They really do listen. So playing to get kills, you're going to want to use either a derp gun. I use a fast firing gun. I tend to get more kills with a fast firing gun. If it says you got to do a lot of penetrations, you want a gun with a fast reload with high penetration. Obviously, if it says you got to do damage blocked by armor, you want a tank that has strong armor. So I spend a lot of time in the garage looking at tanks, adding them to the comparison, going over here. I did this comparing for damage blocked by armor. That's the reason why these tanks are here. And you go and you look and you see here that this particular tank, the Type 5 Heavy, has an advantage over the other tanks, and the Mouse has an advantage over the other tanks also. But the Type 5 Heavy is a clear winner, but the problem is you have more hit points. Actually, no, the problem is I don't have the Mouse. That's what the problem is. You have more hit points than the Maushin and more hit points than the Type 4 Heavy. So people are saying that the Type 4 Heavy is actually the ideal tank to do a damage blocked by armor because if it's triple, if you have to do a multiplier, let's say you have to do triple the amount of hit points, it's best to do it in something like a Type 4 Heavy, because the hit point the ratio of how much damage you have to block or whatever is more efficient with the Type 4 Heavy. But I already sold mine, and I had no reason to rebuy it. And I was having great games. I was doing 10,000 block by damage with the Top 5 Heavy. It's actually really easy. If you watch my damage blocked by armor videos, you'll see how easy it is. I made it to the way up high on the leaderboard. Unfortunately, I didn't grab a screenshot showing my position, but it's not difficult at all. And let's go back to the campaigns here. We'll use Excalibur as an example. These missions are going to be similar. However, there's a difference. The difference is that these are brute force missions. Eventually, you're going to conquer it. They're not complicated where it says something like you have to do 3,000 damage in one game. It'll say you have to do 3,000 damage over the course of 10 games. So it's going to be a lot easier. The missions are a lot easier. At least they're easier for the Excalibur. You can see I've almost completed them. But there's an issue. You got to do it in a certain country. So in this one, it's China and Russia. And because I don't play those tanks as often, I didn't complete as many of the missions. And likewise, you're going to have to do SPG missions. You're going to have to do light tank missions. And in the other campaign missions, for example, for the Object 260, you're forced to play by class. With the other campaign missions, you're forced to play by country, which means you have to go up all the different tech trees. Pretty smart idea that they did it differently. And they give you a way to accelerate your mission to complete with honors. Any mission you have to do multiple times. So if it says you have to destroy 2 vehicles per game, you got to do it 7 games. You have to do 7 games. You have to do it 7 times, not in a row. They're not difficult. The rewards are worth it. I don't know if this Excalibur is a great tank. We should talk about that. I'm only going to talk about the tanks that I've already played. The Stug 4, I think it's a fun tank to play, but it's not absolutely mind-blowing amazing. It's got a fast-firing gun, and it's fast to maneuver, but other than that, it's got weak armor and low damage. So it's not an op tank. T-28 concept is a different story. This one, you got good armor, a good gun handling. The speed is okay. The maneuverability isn't that great. This is more on the overpowered side in terms of tanks. T-55A was a piece of crap. I hated playing it. I even thought about selling it. I understand that they buffed it. My biggest complaint about this tank is that the mobility was horrible. The acceleration is probably really slow. When you hit the button, you just don't go. It might be different now. Object 260 I haven't played, but I'm going to guess that it's a decent tank to play. I've seen the Chimera in the game. I haven't really seen the Excalibur. I've probably seen more Chimeras. And the 279 I've seen once or twice. Even if you think you may never complete these, keep in mind, it took me like at least a year to get the Object 260. It took a long time. It wasn't easy. So some of the things you got to come up with is going to be a heavy tank mission, ramming to kill a tank. Another one is going to be setting an engine on fire, etc. Killing 2 SPGs with a light tank. The list goes on. So there's a strategy to completing each mission. When you do the one where you have to ram a vehicle to kill it with a heavy tank, use a fast heavy tank, such as an FCM-50T, and you want to have a ramming technique, which is you want to ram with your strongest frontal armor, and you don't want to hit the enemy's frontal armor. You want to hit the enemy somewhere where it's weak. As an example with setting the engine on fire, you can watch my video on setting the engine on fire, and you'll see that you basically have to get in the rear with a high pen gun that does high alpha damage and hit it on the lower axle. But that's the type of mission where if you just play the game, eventually you're going to set an engine on fire. With the one for ramming, what you want to do is you want to have a fast heavy tank like an FCM-50T, and you want to hit something like a light tank or an SPG, and that's going to make it a little bit easier for you to complete the mission. So then you're going to have issues where there's going to be games where you got to do a lot of damage. With that, you're going to want guns that do a lot of damage. You're probably going to want premium rounds. I use premium rounds almost exclusively to finish off a campaign mission where I need to do a lot of damage, etc. There are missions that are situational, for example, where opportunistic, where you have to kill 3 SPGs. They lowered it to like 2 SPGs with a light tank. It's not difficult. You just have to keep an eye. So, for example, if it says you have to kill an enemy tank destroyer with a medium tank, what I did was I got my premium rounds and I looked at the enemy team to see where what tank destroyers they had, and where they were situated on the map. And then I positioned myself so that I was in the vicinity of that tank so that I could pop out and kill it. And it was on Ruinberg, and he was on one side of the buildings, and I was on the other side. And all I had to do was go around the corner and hit him with a premium round. And basically, I just waited until his hit points were one shot, came around the corner, killed him. So if you ever hear me complain about stat padding, that's basically what you're doing when you're playing these missions. You're not playing to win the game, you're playing to win the mission. For example, I saw a game, it was on Stalingrad, where an SPG ran across the map. This is one of the funniest replays I ever saw. He ran past all the allies, and there was an enemy scout, a light tank, who had been spotted, and he just ran and killed it. And we were all like, what the hell was that? You know, why would an SPG run through the map and just ram an enemy light tank? And then in chat, immediately after he did that, which of course killed both of them, he said, mission completed, because his mission was to kill an enemy light tank. And instead of doing it with his gun, he rammed it to death. He had a fast tank like the M40 SPG, something like that. It was one of those American SPGs. And the enemy light tank, I really don't remember what it was. It wasn't an LTTB, but it was something that kind of looks like that and was really weakly armored. And it could have been that the light tank rammed into him. But like I said, it was amazing. So people will play the game to complete missions. And it will open your eyes to a different level of gameplay. Okay, so there's going to be some where you have to remain unspotted at the time of doing damage. When you do those missions, you're going to wonder, what happens if I fire the gun, do the damage, but get spotted when I fire the gun? My experience is it will count towards your progress in completing the mission. So you only have to be unspotted up until the point where you click the button. If you get spotted by firing your gun and doing the damage, it counts. You get it included. You don't get excluded. So that's one of the tips you're going to want to know when you come across it. Okay, so for completion with honors, I didn't complete with honors, but you can go back and complete them later. But you're talking about years of gameplay to go back and complete them all with honors. It's going to take a long time. And a lot of them have been completed with honors. For example, you can see this light tank mission. I've only got one more. It's 1,800 of spotting damage and survive the battle. It's a piece of cake. I do 8,000 spotting damage. I can do 1,800. I can pull it off. So for this one, I got the same situation. I've got a lot of light tank missions. For me, light tanks are a piece of cake. So you can go back and fill these in, and you're going to win some extra cash. In this case, I would win the extra 100,000. I'd have to cause damage 5 times to enemy vehicles by shooting them. Fast firing gun, AMX 1357 GF would be perfect for this. Hit it 5 times, spot 4 enemy vehicles, just rush the field, destroy 3. I'm going to have to pull that off someday, and I would get that extra cash. I don't know if I'll ever complete these. Now, another issue is you can actually complete missions for 2 different tanks at the same time. So I'm going to explain. Let's say you're working on this. Okay, well, I'm going to go to the SPG mission. I completed all of them. So we're going to look at this one. It says stun for 200 seconds, destroy 4 enemy vehicles. So I can work on this SPG mission, and I'll come over here to the campaigns, and I'll go to the Excalibur and find an SPG mission. Looks like I already did them all. But there's going to be an SPG mission somewhere. Okay, so I already did them all for this particular class. So you find the corresponding mission and you do both at the same time. For example, we have a cause damage to an enemy vehicle by ramming. So you activate this, and then you go to The other campaigns, you find a ramming mission, you activate that, you work on both at the same time. That's one of the little tricks you can use. I'm going to advise you, do not use your orders. I used my orders for, let's see if we can find them. Okay, here's one. Set an enemy vehicle on fire, same tier or higher. Be among the top 3 by EXP and do 3,000 damage. I think I could pull this off. I should not have used that, but I could pull it off. That was a stupid idea. I eventually would have completed that. I must have been frustrated trying to finish that. Let's see if I can find another one. If I could grab 2 more orders, then I will get the object 260. Cause 5 times more damage than the hit points of your vehicle. Win the battle and survive. Okay, so what I did here was I looked at this mission, which is 5 times more damage than the hit points of your vehicle, and I looked at this mission, which is 8,000 hit points of damage to enemy vehicles, and I said, these 2 missions are similar. I'm going to have to do about the same amount of damage. I'm going to have a killer game, whichever mission I do. So I decided to use the order for this mission. I did not judge 8 as being easier than 15. That's why I made that decision. I think I could obviously do this, but you know what? I worked on this. Was one of those missions where I worked on it for months. I'd spend all day working on it, and I would come close, like 100 hit points close, etc. So I was not happy, and I said, okay, at some point I just got to move on. I really think that I'm going to pull it off by doing the ramming damage, doing the blocking damage. I could do this blocking damage because I'm really good at blocking. And I've come close. I've come within 200 hit points. If you watch my videos, you'll see that I had many opportunities to hit those, to get that 200 hit points. But, you know, the stroke of luck, I missed my shots because the enemy tank just happened to move at that lucky moment. Or I had an APCR round that bounced off weak armor, you know, things like that happen. So I think I'm going to pull it off. I think I'm going to be an Object 260 owner in the near future. The other thing you're going to want to do, you'll notice that we've got Germany, Japan, we've got US, UK, Poland, you got France, Czech, Sweden, Italy. You're going to have some tanks that are your favorite tanks that are going to pull into one of these categories. That's going to. What happened was I just didn't play Chinese and Russian tanks. I'm not that fond of Chinese and Russian tanks. That's the reason why. So I didn't have a lot of games. So you're going to be behind in this. So then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to say, okay, I got to do a Russian tank that is also an SPG. You're starting to narrow down. You got 2 variables. You're going to need the Russian tank for this mission and the SPG for the other mission. So you look to see if you got a Russian SPG that can do both missions at the same time. You can win your orders back if you use one and then you complete it with honors. You can win it back. You cannot use an order from here with the other campaign. You can't use these orders for these. One of the things that I don't like about this is I really think they should have offered more tanks, because this is obviously a tier 5, I believe. That's a 7, that's a 9, that's a 10. There's 10 tiers. Why don't they have 10 tiers worth of tanks? There's lots of cool tanks, like the T7 car could have been a campaign mission. And I would have loved going through all of them. All they got to do is put the tank in and take all the missions, adjust the numbers, and that's it. I mean, it shouldn't take them a long time to come up with more campaign missions. I was really disappointed. There's lots of great tanks that they could have included in this, gift tanks that they gave out in the past, for example. Okay, so if you have any questions or comments, please post.